Beetaloo Energy Australia Limited is a progressive gas company located in the Northern Territory. And joining me right now to talk about the phenomenal progress is Managing Director Alex Underwood. Hello, Alex.
G'day, Tim. Great to catch up again.
Absolutely. And what a phenomenal year 2025 was. You've ticked quite a few boxes. Final investment decision reached. Tens of millions released by Macquarie Bank. Um, all wells flow tested C5, C3, and C2. All operational. T-piece, which was a critical piece for the NT gas supply, has been fitted by the NT government. You have ministerial approval. You've got traditional owner consent to sell test gas. What's your view of what just happened in the last 12 months?
Yeah, it was a massive year for us last year, and very proud of our whole team here in Sydney, up in Brizzy, and particularly in Darwin and out on site. We got a lot done. We fracked the biggest well in Australian history, Carp 5H, which in itself was really a pretty amazing engineering and operational feat for a small company like ours, and that came with the support of not only our shareholders and team, but also some major US services companies. But also, while we were doing that, we were very busy getting all of our approvals in place, as you mentioned, to move into pilot production. The consent of the traditional owners back in June, July was an incredible moment for me personally and the company. That then rolled into the approvals from the NT government, whose support is unquestioned, and our board's decision to move through into pilot production this year. So it was a massive year, but we're not resting on our laurels. We've got a big year ahead of us this year as well.
A big year ahead and a great team to do it with. So the next stage with the release of the funds that you now have is construction of that gas plant that you already own, but just setting it up and plugging it into the T-piece.
That's right. So the gas plant has been in Roma in Queensland, which is a major onshore gas hub, where there's been some fairly minor refurbishment work being done, clearing out the pipes and doing some fixing up of some electrics. But that plant is in very good condition, and it's just about ready to go up to the Northern Territory. What we've been doing simultaneously with that is the civil construction for the Carpentaria gas plant site. That work is now complete, and in the next week or so, we'll start driving the piles down, the foundations for the gas plant, and the gas plant will start moving its way up to the Beetaloo Basin in April, and we'll be constructing it over about a period of, sort of 5 months or so. But the other thing we're going to be doing soon is recommencing flow testing on Carpentaria 5H. So C5H, as I mentioned, was the biggest fracture stimulation ever in Australian history. 3-kilometre horizontal section, 67 stages. We pumped 500,000 barrels of water down with the sand into that well. So it's a
Got to come
massive,
out.
and you've got to get that out. That's right. Learning from the flowback of previous wells that we have drilled and others have drilled in the basin, we have taken a very careful and methodical approach to opening that well back up. So slowly opening up the choke, and that's to ensure that you slowly reduce the pressure down in the reservoir rather than quickly, which can damage the frac formation. But it does take time. So, we saw initial water rates on this well, I think of about 5,000 barrels a day. It's got down to about 6,000 barrels a day when we shut it in. That trend will continue downwards as we can recommence flow testing. And critically, the less water you're moving through the well, the more gas that can get out the other side, as we saw on previous wells.
Yeah, so you're close to getting to IP30 spec, which is when you can actually turn that gas onto the T-piece. Now, the gas plant is located relatively close to your three operating wells, C3, C2, and C5. So during that construction phase, I imagine you'll be putting pipelines directly to the plant from the wells.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, we will have low pressure poly pipe. It's buried under the ground. It's only about 5 k's as the crow flies, so it's very, very close to the gas plant in the scheme of things, particularly compared to a lot of other gas fields around the world. So we'll be running those low pressure gas poly pipes, but also we're going to be running water pipes, which is a very modest investment in the ability to scale up in the future. So, right now we handle all of the water for these wells on the well pad, but as we scale up our operations in the future, obviously subject to further success and booking reserves and so on, the idea is that we could start having centralized water handling facilities as well, as you see in the US, which is vastly more efficient.
So I noticed quite recently there was an article published and it was generated by AI, but it's a question that probably investors ask and it's worth addressing. And it's, when will Beetaloo Energy Australia become profitable? Now, I know Rome wasn't built in a day, but can you answer that question?
Well, the first thing I would say, Tim, is that AI is not a director of a public company, and so AI can make forward-looking statements which humans can't necessarily make under Australia's Corporations Act. But what I would say is that, when you look at the development of a gas field, it's a bit different to mining. In mining, you do have a lot of upfront capex, but then you have quite high opex. With gas, it's very different. The vast majority of your cost is the capex of drilling the well, and your opex is very low. So we do expect it to be quite high margin in terms of the operating cash flows. But I would say that we are still in the appraisal phase. We are not in full scale. We're not going into full scale commercial production. We haven't booked 2P reserves yet. We still have a bit of work to do there where we're optimizing frac design, working out where to land these laterals. It's a huge R&D process that we're carrying out. But we do expect that we should start generating some cash flow at the asset level by the end of this year. But I'll leave it to AI to make the forecasts.
Well, you're sitting on the largest shale gas deposit in the world, and fantastic progress in a short period of time for the company. What is in store for 2026?
Well, I think this is going to be a huge year for the basin and for us. This basin has never sold gas, never produced gas. And if you look back through Australia's history, it's been about 20 years since a new basin started selling gas. And I think it was one of the basins in the Queensland coal seam methane industry. The fact that not only we, but also one of our neighbours, Tamboran, will be commencing pilot gas sales this year is really a huge moment for the basin, for the Northern Territory, and for Australia's energy sector and the country, really. We desperately need more gas supply. We've talked about that many times before, so we're really thrilled about that. But also, it's not just smaller companies like us and Tamboran that are really recognising the Beetaloo. I go to the US quite regularly. Everyone in Texas is aware of the Beetaloo, and they're watching very closely and actually investing now. We're not only seeing investment come in, but also the major services companies are starting to commit capital and equipment to this basin. So, the expectation based on the public data is that there will be more horizontal wells drilled here in this basin this year than last. We're seeing Santos get up and running, for example, and others. And so, it's going to be a year of increased investment, increased activity, first production out of the basin. And, the sky's really the limit from here.
Well, when you say the sky's the limit, the Marcellus Basin in the US triggered energy independence and energy security for the US. And with the Beetaloo being a larger deposit, you can only assume that Australia's source of energy security could well be the Beetaloo Basin.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Beetaloo is clearly Australia's largest gas resource opportunity. It's fundamentally not right that we are paying very high energy prices in this country. We're so blessed with energy resources, and yet we're suffering shortages. It's really not good. And, I think this basin, with its existing and planned infrastructure connectivity into the East Coast, can really help Australian households, help a new renaissance in manufacturing in this country. It's important to remember the reason most of our manufacturing is in Victoria is because of the Bass Strait fields. They had a lot of gas. Now they're declining.
They're running out.
New source. And to my mind, that is the Beetaloo Basin.
Mm. All right, before we wind up, let's just tick off. Well, let's look at the boxes need ticking in 2026, which is going to culminate in commercial sales by the end of the year. What are they?
Well, so just to recap, gas plant construction, it's already started. It's going really well, on time, on budget. We're going to be continuing that work into the dry season and right through the next few months. Flow testing to come, more flow testing from Carpentaria 5H starting, in about a couple of months' time. The big one is commencement of sales later this year.
We're on the money pot. So I've been speaking with Alex Underwood, who's the Managing Director for Beetaloo Energy. Go and have a look at the website. And sir, thank you very much for that update.
Thanks, Tim. Great to talk. Cheers.
Talk soon.